ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, saints and strugglers, hear me today. We are living in a time when the winds of uncertainty are blowing fierce, when the waves of fear rise high and the storms of life don't knock. They barge in uninvited, unexpected, and unrelenting. But I came here not to entertain you. I came to empower you, because some of you have been standing in the middle of your storm, your marriage storm, your mental health storm, your financial storm, and you're wondering, God, how do I stay steady when everything around me is shaking? Let me tell you something. Fear is a liar, and your storm is not your sentence. You were not created to sink. You were made to stand, to walk, and to conquer. There's a power in you that the storm can't handle. So today, we're not just going to talk about fear. No, we're going to confront it. We're going to strip it of its voice. We're going to tear down every lie it told you and every chain it wrapped around your purpose. Because if you can just learn to stay steady in the shaking, if you can hold your ground while the wind howls, you will rise out of this storm stronger, wiser, and more dangerous to the enemy than ever before. Are you ready? Let's go to war with fear, and let's walk out of this storm with our heads high and our faith on fire. Storms are an unavoidable part of life. They come in many forms: emotional, relational, financial, spiritual, and they rarely give us warning. Sometimes we can feel them building on the horizon, but often they hit suddenly, shaking everything we thought was secure. But while the storm may be inevitable, how we respond to it, it is entirely up to us. Panic is a natural instinct, but it's not a requirement. Fear may rise, but it does not have to reign. You see, panic is what happens when we lose focus, when we let the wind and the waves dictate our internal state. Panic is reactive. It pulls us out of our position and disconnects us from our purpose. But steadiness is a decision. It's the quiet strength of someone who knows that the storm may roar around them, but it cannot touch what is rooted deep within them. Life doesn't promise ease, but it offers opportunity, the chance to stand tall even when everything around us is trying to knock us down. The ones who stay steady aren't the ones who never cry or never feel fear. They're the ones who have made up their mind that fear won't make their choices. They anchor themselves in faith, in discipline, in truth. Panic will always offer you an exit. Run away, lash out, give up. But steadiness builds something lasting. It doesn't mean the absence of emotion, but the control of it. You have to decide, even in the trembling, that you won't let the storm define who you are or how you show up in the world. Sometimes the greatest battle against what's happened around, but what's happening within us, that internal chaos, is where fear does its loudest talking. But you have to interrupt the noise with stillness. You have to speak back to your own mind, your own doubts, your own fear, and say, peace, be still. That kind of authority doesn't come from avoiding the storm. It comes from walking through it and realizing it doesn't have the power to destroy you unless you hand it the keys. Panic reacts to the storm. Steadiness remembers who you are in the storm. One weakens you, the other builds you. Fear is one of the most powerful forces we will ever face. not because of what it is, but because of what it does to our vision. When fear takes over, it clouds our perspective, magnifies our problems, and shrinks our sense of self. It doesn't just whisper lies, it yells them over and over until we start believing them. It convinces us that we're not ready, not good enough, not strong enough, not qualified. Fear distorts everything. It makes the possible seem impossible and the near feel far. It causes us to forget who we are and what we carry inside. When we look at our lives through the lens of fear, we no longer see opportunities, we see threats. We stop seeing open doors and start seeing walls. We start protecting ourselves from failure so much that we forget how to move forward at all. But while fear distorts, faith clarifies. Faith doesn't always eliminate the fear, but it does correct the vision. It brings things back into alignment. It reminds you that even when the situation looks uncertain, you are not alone in it. Faith brings light into the dark corners where fear has been hiding. It gives you the boldness to step out when you don't have every answer. It recalibrates your vision so that you start seeing possibility where fear only saw risk. Faith gives you access to courage, not because you feel fearless, but because you know who's holding your future. Faith tells you that you don't need to have the whole plan, you just need to take the next step. Fear thrives in isolation, but faith thrives in connection. Connection to truth, to purpose, to people, and to something greater than yourself. It pulls your vision upward when fear tries to drag it downward. Faith reminds you that your past is not your prison and your current storm is not your final chapter. It gives you permission to hope again, dream again, and move again. When you choose faith, your steps may still be shaky, but your vision is clear. You're no longer being led by emotion. You're being led by truth. And truth is stronger than fear. When your vision is clear, your focus sharpens. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop hiding and start building. Faith does not need ideal conditions to work. It just needs to be chosen. Every time you choose faith over fear, you train your vision to see differently. You begin to spot the way through instead of the reason to give up. You begin to walk like someone who believes they were made to rise, not retreat. Your foundation is what holds you steady when everything around you starts to shift. In life, storms are not a matter of if, they're a matter of when. You don't always get to choose the timing, the intensity, or the duration of your storms, but you do get to choose what you're standing on. And that choice, your foundation, is what determines whether you crumble or stand firm when the pressure comes. People often try to face storms by bracing themselves on temporary things of popularity, money, relationships, titles, even their own strength. But when the winds of disappointment blow, or when the rain of rejection falls, or when the floods of failure rise, those things can't hold you up. They were never meant to. They look strong in calm weather, but the storm reveals the truth. The storm doesn't just test the surface. It tests the structure. It shows solid and what's hollow. The storm exposes whether your confidence is rooted in truth or just in comfort. A strong foundation comes from building your life on principles that don't shake when the circumstances do, it comes from daily decisions to develop discipline, to cultivate integrity, to stay grounded in your values even when it costs you. It comes from inner work that the world doesn't see, choosing peace over chaos, growth over ego, humility over pride. Your foundation isn't built overnight. It's built in the quiet, unseen moments when you choose to keep going even when no one's clapping, when you choose to forgive even though bitterness feels easier, when you keep showing up when quitting seems justified. You cannot wait for the storm to start building your foundation. It must already be in place. Because in the middle of the storm, you won't have time to pour concrete. You'll only have time to stand. And when you stand on something solid, you can weather what would crush you otherwise. A firm foundation isn't about perfection. It's about preparation. It's about choosing to go deep instead of just wide. It's tempting to chase success, recognition, or comfort. But storms don't care how many followers you have or what car you drive. They come to test your depth. Have you built your life on something unshakable, or did you build your house on sand? The deeper your foundation, the more you can handle. You stop reacting to every gust of wind because you know what you're rooted in. You stop letting temporary feelings rewrite long-term truths. You develop a kind of stillness that doesn't come from the absence of the storm, but from the strength of what you're anchored to. And that stillness gives you clarity. When the storm hits and everything else is moving, your foundation becomes your advantage. While others are tossed by every wave, you remain, not because you're stronger, but because you're stable. And stability is power in a world full of noise and panic. Progress isn't born in comfort. It's carved out in chaos. In the middle of life's mess, when the noise is loud and everything feels uncertain, that's where true growth has a chance to take root. But chaos has a way of distracting us, pulling our attention in every direction, making us reactive instead of intentional. We think we're being productive, but we're just busy. We think we're moving forward, but we're just spinning. The truth is, without inner peace, progress is hard to measure, harder to sustain, and nearly impossible to enjoy. That's why some people achieve success but still feel empty. That's why others keep starting over, not because they aren't capable, but because they never learned to stabilize themselves in the middle of the pressure. Peace doesn't mean the absence of conflict. It means clarity in the middle of it. It's the ability to stay calm without shutting down, to be present without being overwhelmed, to lead yourself through confusion instead of waiting for everything to be perfect. Chaos is loud, demanding, emotional. It wants you to react now. It wants you to match its energy. But peace says, no, slow down, breathe, see it for what it really is. When you learn to protect your peace, you begin to master your responses. And mastery over your mind, your mood, and your movement. That's the foundation for real, lasting progress. Most people think they'll feel peaceful once the storm passes. But peace doesn't come after the chaos. It has to be found within it. If you can't find peace in the pressure, you'll always be waiting for something outside of you to calm down before you can move forward. That kind of life keeps you stuck, keeps you small. True peace is an inside job. It's cultivated in how you think, how you breathe, how you choose. It's in the way you protect your time, the way you guard your thoughts, the way you filter what deserves your attention. It's not passive, it's powerful. It's a discipline, it's a decision to stay aligned with your values, even when everything around you seems unstable. Progress requires focus, and focus comes from peace. You cannot build what you constantly doubt. You can't grow what you don't nurture. When your inner world is in order, your outer world becomes manageable. Even when it's messy, that's when you stop reacting to life and start directing it. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions and begin to create forward motion right in the middle of your mess. Because the people who make it through storms with something to show aren't the ones who avoided the storm. They're the ones who found their center in it. Peace is not a luxury, it's a weapon. And when you learn to carry it into battle, chaos doesn't get to define your pace. You do. Victory doesn't come to those who feel no fear. It comes to those who refuse to be ruled by it. Fear is a natural response, but it becomes a problem when we give it power over our decisions. It whispers in our ears, creating worst-case scenarios, highlighting every possible failure, and convincing us that risk equals ruin. But fear only has the authority we give it. It thrives on hesitation, feeds on avoidance, and grows in silence. When we bow to fear, we shrink our lives. We stay in toxic relationships because we're afraid to be alone. We reject opportunities because we fear we're not enough. We avoid hard conversations because we're scared of rejection. But every time we yield to fear, we train our minds to believe that we are incapable. We teach ourselves to settle for safety over growth. And slowly, almost without noticing, we build a life that looks like survival instead of purpose. To break that cycle, you have to start making fear uncomfortable. Fear doesn't leave because you wait long enough. It leaves when you confront it. That confrontation doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It can be quiet and consistent. It's getting up and trying again after failure. It's showing up to speak when your voice shakes. It's writing the book, starting the business, forgiving the person, not because fear disappeared, but because you decided it doesn't get to sit in the driver's seat anymore. You conquer fear by action, not by analysis. Thinking about courage won't change you. Choosing it will. Every victory in life, every real breakthrough requires courage in the face of fear. The bigger your calling, the louder your fear may be. That's not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're moving towards something that matters. You can't conquer what you won't face. You have to look fear in the eye and say, you may come with me, but you will not control me. That's how you take your power back. That's how you stop letting fear write your story. You'll never eliminate all fear, but you can starve it. You can stop feeding it with your thoughts, your time, your energy. You can replace it with truth, with faith, with action. And every time you do that, you take a step out of fear and into freedom. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait to feel brave. You live brave even when it's hard, and that is what victory looks like